that once completed cannot be deleted or altered. Subsequently, these blocks have to be changed so that we can always find them. The blockchain is replicated automatically by all the nodes of the system, which guarantees the cumulative aspect. Is an innovative system applied to Bitcoin. These allow transactions to be in chain without validating externally. After the Bitcoin, other currencies were created, enhanced by the technology. Ethereum, for example, can be used for intelligent contracts that can be complied and enforced automatically given a previously set of conditions. Same thing for other systems that will prevent wrecking and made easier monitoring. And the settlement of contracts based on pre-established conditions can be used in several uses and in several sectors. The cost of transaction will also be impacted in terms of the use of blockchain, which can reduce it significantly. We are going to discuss how these ideas can be applied to copyrights and licensing. To facilitate this discussion and to better understand the revolution that this may represent in intellectual property, we are going to have this panel moderated by Tamila Talarico. You have the floor, Tamila. Good morning. I am Tamila Talarico. I am a partner at Daniel Law Firm, and I'm very happy to be here for the panel several talking about blockchain as a copyright and licensing tool. We have a very special group of lecturers this morning. You've seen already the video, so that's enough for introduction. I'm not going to give you any further details because we have very competent people who will talk to you about it. Our first speaker is Carlo Hishioto, and he's going to show the view from the perspective of the technology provider. How is the services seen? How important it is within IBM, and he will also talk about some cases. And let me introduce the other speakers of this morning. We are also going to hear Carlos Cayoto, who is the CEO and the founder of Tune Trader, who promises to revolutionize the music industry. So we are going to see his presentation. And to conclude, we are going to hear Fernanda Garcia, who is the executive director of the Brazilian Book Chamber. And we will see how she is already doing today, working with this blockchain revolution within the book industry. So I won't take more of your time. I'm going to give the floor to Carlos Hishioto from IBM. And each speakers will have a lot of time, and we'll go straight from the one to the other. We have a chat, so if you have questions, please send your question, or if you'd rather wait to the end of the panel, we'll also entertain questions. Carlos, can you hear me? Good morning. Yes, I can hear you well. Great. So you have the floor, Carlos. Thank you. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you for
So I have rules and conditions. So this is called a contract. So that's why we call it a smart contract. And where do we use it? In any transaction, any business between companies. Um, it's natural. You have participant A and B participating. Sometimes there's a difference, either because of a flaw, somebody rang in the wrong number because there's been a fraud or an attack. And it is under this scenario that we are going to put in the blockchain, sharing a ledger. So the same information is going to be accessible to everyone. However, if I only have one copy, I would have a second problem to trust somebody who has the only copy of that. So the second great concept of blockchain, you're going to distribute a copy of the whole ledger to all participants in that network. In this case here, I have 6 participants and they all have a copy, just as it happens in a contract. So there's going to be a copy for you and me and one at the notary public. And if there's a problem, we go to the notary public and we check it. This is the same idea. Just the notary public is not part that we distribute to all participants. So that confers trust to the actual network. And to think of a fraud, then I would have to corrupt I have to attack it, invade it. So within the same tenth of a second to change anything. This is impossible because of encryption and because it's all over the place. So it's extremely safe and absolutely impossible to change any information once it's in it. So when the Bitcoin example has been going on for 12 years and nobody has ever managed to change any transaction in Bitcoins. If you manage that, it's 120 billion market. So people who would manage to do that would make a lot of money. So that proves the safety of the technology. When we talk about trust, it's based on 4 pillars. The ledger that's distributed, and so on. The idea of the contract, the computer program is going to be so I am going to make sure, validate all the clauses of the contract, and I can only prove it if all the conditions are accepted. And it's all sorts of contracts. If I am going to receive this box with frozen meat, or if I am the holder of the rights of a copyright, or if I'm the author of a book. So any clause. And the third pillar is privacy. So there are mechanisms to guarantee I can only see what it's interesting to me and what I have permission to see. And then evidence and proof, which works both ways. I can prove to everyone that's participating in the network that I am the one carrying out the transaction. If I made a transaction, I was the one, and the network will prove. In case I say, no, I didn't say this, I didn't carry out. So the whole network tells me, yeah, here is the encrypted proof that you carried out the transaction. So blockchain started in 2008 with Bitcoin. We mentioned that before. And until 2015, it was kind of stuck to the cryptocurrency world. And then as of 2015, large technology companies started to see blockchain as a technology that could improve the then the Hyperledger is an open initiative from 2016. It's an open source. It is coordinated by Linus Foundation. remember our networks, in our networks there will be all sorts of companies, all sizes, so it has to be accessible and it has to be free. So there are companies providing the technology, which is the case of IBM. We have Hyperledger on the ledger on the IBM platform for management, support, and operations. But if somebody would like to download this in the under Hyperledger and use it, yes, they can do that by connecting. And then we think it's important that the code should be free, open, as a crowd initiative. And then projects started to grow. Some of these projects around the world and some in Brazil. Just to give you an idea in figures, I'm only talking about IBM projects, the ones I'm allowed to talk about. Over 500 projects developed by IBM, 1,100 active networks. Why? Because we have projects that started with our partners, but also our clients that place their projects on the cloud. For these networks to work, IBM helped create active consortia around the world to coordinate the networks. So if I have this, I have to have some kind of governance to coordinate the network. So then I see something interesting. ABPI, for example, could be the governance entity of an intellectual property network, because I need rules. And out of these networks, and 4 of these were platforms that IBM thought that it made sense for us to be governors, to carry out the governance in a more accessible user way. What are the projects? I'm just going to describe some of them. There are a number of them. We could spend the rest of the day talking about them. These are companies that have projects with IBM that have authorized us to disseminate the project as well as their brands. IBM is very careful. We only do this by having their permission. One important one of the oldest one, is the Everledger that started in England to track diamonds. So I can track diamonds from mining to the store. And under this, we have a trust fund, trade lands with containers, and clearing with Maersk. So physical traceability of goods, food security, and so on. We have in the financial area, international payments, trade finance, insurance, and energy, clean energy, certificates are generated, automated grid management. We have projects in government with intelligent cities. All the system under Dubai are under a blockchain, sovereign entities. So I generate an identity and what credentials I add to identity. In Brazil, we have tech dump projects for management, money management, and also the network integrating bank information. So it's in all sectors, being more specific in intellectual property and copyright. There are some projects that IBM participates in the world. We have some in Japan, in the US, and Europe to follow up on intellectual property. Kodak has an interesting project for photos. I will show you some other cases too. We also have some entertainment and media. For example, for advertising, which is not intellectual property, but it is application for advertising to make sure that the advertising has been shown, how often, and so on. Also, box office ticket sales, make sure that tickets are not falsified, counterfeit. And then another interesting project in Europe to make sure that there's a uniform parts are uniform. Let's say I have digital photos. In the past, we would print it. And now in blockchain, you can make sure there are only 20 copies of that photo. And then I make sure that there's only 20 copies. So then you're conferring value to an asset that started off as a digital asset. So how does one start? There are many ways. One message to take home, we have a startup program. It's called Startup with IBM. So we have cloud credits to test technology. And then we have also a technical support program to help companies create solutions for companies that have an idea and that's starting up. Tune Trades, Carlos is going to speak about. For by chance that this is an IBM platform. We didn't talk about this before. They use the startup platform at IBM. If I have for bigger companies, also there are other support mechanisms on how to get started and how to create your network. And here I leave two studies. The first one is from Forrester, talking about how blockchain is impacting the economy. So is how it's impacting business and so on. And the second is one distributed by President Jerry Cuomo. How do I start the journey of creating a network? That's the first step. Who is going to be part of your network? And then the last slide, my contacts. This is my QR code, is my LinkedIn profile. Go ahead and add me on LinkedIn. And here, ibm.com/blockchain with more information. Obviously, this is an extensive topic. We could spend a whole week talking about blockchain, but the idea was just to give you a taste and touch upon what it is, and then open up to discuss this topic in more detail. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for the invitation. And back to you, Tammy. I hope everyone can hear me well. I'd like to thank you, Carlos, for your presentation. I have been studying this topic for some time. I've been a fan for a while. It's a great privilege to have you here. You have been working so hard on educating people about this topic, and it's great to see all the solutions in real life, what's already happening in business. And one specific point I think is interesting to talk about for intellectual property, which is the unitizing and confer a rarity to a digital native asset. How do you manage to make sure that there's value in the digital universe by making it a rare item? I think for the audience we have today, this is a very important point. And I am not going to make a speech. I'm just going to make a brief comment, and correct me if I'm wrong. The guy from Blockchain Revolution, he says it's a second generation of internet. The first one was disseminating information. Now it's a new generation, which is disseminating value based on trust. So this is very clear when we think that we can make a digital asset rare. It's not going to be the internet of copy, but internet of value. So when you send an email, people can copy. Now with blockchain, this is a unique asset with a code and an identity that we can follow up. I am going to go on to the next speaker. I just want to explain what was going on. We started at the right time. We had a transmission problem. There was a really big problem with the internet. So we wanted to wait to go live. So now we're back. But maybe you may not have started, we may not have heard Carlos when he said, but we started by recording. But you can have access to the recording afterwards. And now I'm going to give the floor to the other Carlos, founder of Tune Traders, who is revolutionizing the music industry by using blockchain. Technology. So we are under this zone of fire. Streaming is going to grow 9 times in the next 10 years. We're talking about $1.2 trillion per year. So Tune Traders is kind of a stock exchange of intellectual property, crowd investing model through using blockchain technology that we can actually generate revenues for investors in the future. Today, a song distributed, I have mapped over 500 distributors around the world that are fighting, that once you plug them in our ecosystem, we confer the artist more control of their revenues and more transparency from where the revenues are coming from. So we believe that the streaming systems, so we want to be in the full arts market, but we're starting off with music because this is already in practice for some time. We have over 500 players controlling revenues in music. So we managed to offer our investors and fans and even companies I will touch upon in a few minutes, brands that would like to sponsor a song, for example, to provide more trust and transparency to the process. Here we have some problems. I have mentioned some. Here are some classic examples. We carried out extensive research to see what the main problems in this market were when it came to capital. Lack of transparency, and also artists depending on the capital held by music companies. So for you to have an idea how much profit is involved, we have a case, a duo, two people on the internet, each one being successful in one place, and then there's an agent and one guy who's not so successful anymore, and then they invest in the duo, but the company, it's only 25%, it's only 12.5% each. It's kind of what happens in the market. And normally these careers don't last so long because of this very reason. Here is an interesting example, internet cowboy. If I see a talent, I place 100,000 reais on their clip and I don't share it with anybody. So then that's the end of the conversation. We want to offer this possibility. 100,000, they know that 150 will come the next day after the song is launched, and we wanted everyone to participate, and this would bring more capital into this market. So this is an example how this is really a profitable market, the music industry and streaming itself, that actually makes it possible for us to map various streamings in a certain way, mapping revenues and so on. When exercised through blockchain technology, I am going to talk about the Open Music Initiative. It's from Berkeley for Music University and MIT. They intend to have all intellectual property to start off on blockchain. When a piece is generated, has to register already in blockchain. And we're studying how we're going to integrate in their platform. Here's just a scope on how the market is split and where we're tacking, which is the last column right here. But I'm not going to go into detail for the sake of time. This is a video I'd like you to play. It's just 1 minute. Can you go ahead and play the video? You want some money to record your song without being dependent on an agent or a music company. Tune Traders connects artists to investor funds and fans. You have an idea with the lyrics, and then Tune Traders will fraction it in small pieces in blockchain. Anytime it plays on streaming, this money goes back to the artists and the investors. Paulinho Novaes and Ana Vitória's song received after their launch in 63 reais for each 50 reais invested. And Barra's fund invested is a campaign we launched for musicians in general. We're launching it at this point, actually, which is after the Batalha de Versos, the Battle of Verses, which was a huge success. I will talk about it soon. You see it on the screen. After a song is launched, we have a connection with the distributor, and then when we receive the scores, we retoken through blockchain for those who put in the money. Here's the case, Ana Vitória and Paulo Novaes. So it's a duo, Ana Vitória and Paulinho Novaes, a tokenized 41.7% of revenues within 100 quotas because he needed money to produce the clip. So in 1 month, the song was played 1 million times on Spotify, 250,000 views on YouTube and other platforms. So each fan that received 50 reais made 63 in the first month. But, this is going to be recurrent, and distributor is going to pay two traders, and two traders splits between the individuals who invested. In this case, 100 quotas of 100 reais. But I have another case. Here is the Battle of Verses. 57 artists, and the first contender out of 5 that get the prize got 10,000 reais. It was a Barra fund. We had a lot of sharing. Paulo Blitar, Picon, Gui Araújo, everybody was disseminating. It was an organic growth. It was a major success. So what happened was that the first fund placed money, invested money on an artist. This is very relevant for the music industry because historically, this has always been the music company, the record company, which was a bank disguised as a company. I had another platform, a Partio, another crowdfunding platform. That's where I got the idea for Tune Traders. Crowdfunding, more money from companies connected with the songs and other fans with less amount. When we validated that, we started with other players, and now we have different actions with other companies. You can have a product placement on a song or a clip or on lyrics. So you can manage to trace where it was played, who executed it, and this was placed illegally anywhere. Here how it works. The whole circuit. We want to connect to 26 players. I listed in the beginning, but we start by these 3 that are very important today for this point in time. A fan becomes an investor, and today it can be also a company and the investor. Here, Maurício, Magaldi, Marcelo, and myself, each one with different technology, and in my case, intellectual property. And here are some of the partners we work with. Fluvi, that belongs to Global. Today is one whole global company. So these are our partners in the role of distributors in helping us in our campaigns. IBM is where we have blockchain environment running. The bot front supported the first artist, helped us with this case. And we're also part of Open Music Initiative, both Berkeley College of Music and MIT. So very soon, this is going to turn into one single thing, and we're not going to depend anymore from the SRC for music. So this is my presentation. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to show our case, and I hope that there will be a time for questions in the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. We will start our next presentation. Fernanda Garcia. If we could start right away, so we will have some time for questions. Are you ready, Fernanda? Tamila, thank you for the invitation. I would like to thank you and ABPI for this invitation. I also would like to thank the master class given by our colleagues. It's very good to talk about Carlos because he has explained very well the blockchain technology. So it set the stage for what I'm going to say. Well, I'm going to try and be brief. The idea is the following. Well, let me first introduce myself. I am Fernanda Garcia. I have a background in law, intellectual property. For many years, I was in the legal department, but now I'm in the executive sector, and I'm going to talk very briefly about our work, the blockchain applications, which are many. But here I'm going to talk also about the book market and the application of registration, licensing, and cooperation. If we could go back one slide, please. Well, I apologize for going back and forth. The Brazilian Book Chamber is a civil association, a non-profit. It has existed for more than 70 years. It was founded in 1946, and the goal is to disseminate access to books. And if you'd like to learn more about us, our site is in the slide. We provide services, events. We also engage in advocacy as an association, defending our industry. We give awards and we carry out campaigns. Let me briefly show some points. Well, we organize the book show in Sao Paulo. We also offer the Jabuti Award, very well known. This year, we've become the ISBN. We became an ISBN agency, and this gives us metadata on book. We also have another project that is called Brazilian Publisher, which aims at disseminating Brazilian literature abroad and also to protect copyrights abroad. We also have a registration service for copyrights in line with the ISBN platform, and two advocacy actions undertaken this year. One was called Reopening Bookstores, and we are raising funds so that bookshops can reopen. And We also had a campaign, Leave Books Alone. This is the hashtag. And this was started as a response to the proposal to tax books further in Brazil. What is the main possibilities of application of blockchain in the book industry? We have the registration, licensing, and more intelligent ways of controlling works, compensating for the work for works of authorship that sometimes is not receiving any compensation, and using a platform that would be possible, and cooperation. Blockchain, in my view, is something which will make easier all processes that are currently costly, take a long time, and I think Carlos Gayotto gave a very good example. It also allows writers to give visibility to their work. So let me address each one of these applications because they are very interesting. Protection and registration. This is the work that we have been doing at our chamber. Here, I think one important point is going back to the legislation to understand how copyright registration is done in light of our legislation. So why is it important to have a copyright registration? This is optional according to the law. But once the book is published, the rights are under the name of the writer. But today, at the speed, since the speed at which we operate is very fast, the possibility of having leakages of an unknown book or undue kind of appropriation becomes more likely to happen than in the time that we had an analogic system. So we thought that it would be interesting in the book sector to have a system of registering copyright and to be able to do it in an easy and not expensive way, and in a way that you are negotiating your book before it is published. So if there is a misappropriation, you have a registration showing that at that particular date you were already working on the authorship of that book text publication. This is one way of guaranteeing your rights in a work that has not been published. And another important point is explaining why a blockchain registration is important. The law says that it is optional, this registration, and we have the text of the law 9610 in the slide. And of course, there are other agencies in terms of registration. So the law does not make it mandatory, it's optional. And writers had different ways of responding to the time frame requirement in terms of a registration. So blockchain in the sense will make things more agile and secure. As Carlos Kyoto explained very well, this technology is extremely safe because you cannot change it, you cannot alter the system. Therefore, it is very positive and has brought agility to writers, to the publisher. So the registration basically will provide evidence in case there is a claim or a dispute or any type of discussion on the book, on the work published. And we have to bear in mind that our civil code authorizes us to use all legal means to provide evidence They have to be lawful, even if they have not been particularly specified. The code, of course, dates back to a time in which blockchain did not exist, so it did not contemplate this possibility. But the text allows for different kinds of evidences. And I wanted to show one first decision held on blockchain. The blockchain technology has been considered in a court decision in the fifth camera, in the fifth chamber of the São Paulo court. This was an appeal, and there was an urgency. They were discussing dissemination in social networks. It was not specifically copyright. So, in terms of the urgency remedy, there was a request not to notify the ones that made the publication so that the posting would not be deleted. But the plaintiff requested that, and the judge understood that in terms of that request, there were grounds, and it was also said that based on the facts, the writer has took measures to guarantee the content in the blockchain so as to be able to prove the truthfulness of content. So it's one first case in which the technology has been recognized in court. At least I'm not aware of other cases, but it's very interesting, although it's not a a sentence, it's a provisional decision, but it's already an indication of such use of evidence. In case of copyright registration, we have a platform which is called the CBL services. In this platform, the user will get an ISBN for the work, for the book, which is a form that is part of the roster. This is required according to the law in Brazil, and registration can be carried out based on the blockchain technology. Why do this registration? I think we've covered that already, so that you can have evidence, and there are other purposes. Registration in our platform is possible for any work of authorship protected by copyright. It could be text, photograph, illustrations, and what cannot go to the platform is what is not covered by copyright. And also, let me give you an example. I think you understand the difference, of course, in this audience, but intellectual property, trademarks, and patents, this is not covered by copyright, of course. Now you see what our platform looks like. It's very simple. You enter the type of work, the authorship, and you pay the due amount, and you get a certificate. Within your user area, you're always going to have access to the books register and the hash of registration. And that's what I wanted to tell about registration. Let me turn to licensing. In licensing, I think we have an incredible opportunity for our sector. Today, it's difficult sometimes to locate precisely this issue of authorship. When we talk about a single platform, is something extremely interesting. It would bring about transparency for licensing, and there's also the possibility of making available books through smart contracts. which allows licensing format to be endless. For each type of licensing, you would need a system with fair compensation. The author would find it appropriate. Therefore, this is a major change that can be introduced and can bring about many benefits, including fair compensation, which sometimes is not done. So I'm going to present a few examples. Poet is a universal catalog, open, and it shares registration of a metadata in information. And here we talk about a very broad universe. Any type of work protected by copyright or other assets that are included. So users, the writers and publishers may create their own licensing terms if they want to do so. And if they want to do so because there is already a default that they can use. But there is a possibility of having different contracts depending on the type of book, the type of use. So it's very interesting. There's also a possibility of controlling the integrity of the work. The publisher can have a stamp and control this digital printing and make sure that no changes are included in the book or publication. The publishers can manage all their creative digital resources in one single place, which certainly is very helpful. You can have one single base. Creators, content creators, and publishers can authorize licensing of their contents to other companies. You can do it for the user or for another company. If you have a poem that is going to be used by another company in another book, licensing can be done in the standard system or using a different one. This is also a very interesting platform from Canada. It's called Bookchain. It's an online platform, so the publisher and writers can define their configuration for traceability, security. As Carlos said, this is the idea of turning that digital asset in a very unique one. And so that's how you can have ebooks being circulating around the world. And it allows control over the publishing of books. You have an analysis of the impact of books. You have certain tools that make this work very relevant. It also offers a smart contract with certain parameters in terms of price, number of copies available, royalties. So this is the flexibility brought by Bookchain. Another example is another possibility of applying blockchain to literary and scientific work. It's cooperation. A scientific publication often is the result of a work of cooperation, and the integrity of the publication and the truthfulness of what has been published can be protected by blockchain. There are some initiatives. One of them is Orvian, which establishes a cooperation environment among scientists to share information using blockchain. Participants can charge for the review that is done. So one scientist can count on the participation of others to go over their work, to review their work, and research and data and licensing will be under the control of the scientists, and the platform is extremely transparent. Again, another very interesting application that is specifically for cooperation. Another topic which is not directly related to intellectual property, but I think it's worth mentioning. The publishing market sells books and digital books also through consignment. So a publishing house will give their books to a bookstore and they will be compensated depending on the amount of sales. Obviously, this accounts for a lot of work, having the entries for all the sales and stock. And these are problems that could be better dealt with this with such app. We have here an article by Bruno Mendes talking precisely about the possibility of using this format using blockchain for the publishing industry. So what we see here, trust, transparency, accountability, important intelligent contracts, clarity, and automatic payments. So I conclude here my presentation. My email is available if you'd like to get in touch with me, and I'm also in LinkedIn. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, Carlos. Carlos Gaiotto and Carlos Ricciotto. It's an honor to have you here. We are already receiving compliments for your presentations. It's great to be able to rely on people like you who have such an experience and knowledge. Unfortunately, we won't be able to entertain questions because we had a small problem starting our panel. So we regret that, but you're going to have a copy of this lecture. So once again, sorry for the technical problems. Thank you for being with us, and thank you. I'd like to thank my incredible, fantastic lecturers. Thank you. It's been some time that we've been talking about the speed at which the world is changing. But in fact, we expected these changes to follow a pace established by us according to our needs, as if changes were predictable or easy to assimilate. Until one day the world came to a halt. We had to look at news and be face to face with our vulnerability. None of us expected to be in a situation like the one we are facing, but here we are, immersed in this universe. Have we been able to learn something from that? Being able to learn is the trademark of our human condition. We had to overcome our difficulties to deal with the situation. And now it's very clear what is important to us. We understand that we are part of a broader universe and that we all have to rely on each other. The challenge is to learn with each other the roads for digital transformation to make a difference with empathy and courage. It is this the prevailing spirit at LD Soft, and here we are ready to help you to do more for your client, offering means to be more productive and more efficient, even under the unexpected conditions of totally remote work. Our tools offer exactly what you need to be able to address everything that is important and that only you can do. So you have time to provide to your clients and customers the excellence they know they are going to get. So Let's stick together so that soon we may unveil our smiles and celebrate new accomplishments and face new challenges. LD Soft, bringing potential to the legal universe through technology.